sometimes we get this question or more of a comment of like, wow, you two get along so well. Because if you don't know, we're sisters. And, I've never really thought about it like that. I've never really thought about how we work so hard to get along and not, kick each other in the face. But I was wondering, like, why is siblings being like arguing with each other and just sibling rivalry in general so prevalent?
Yeah, well, I think it is something that, it's a big question because most of the siblings that we've came across have not had the greatest relationship. And that's something that is a rarity these days. And it's like, well, why do siblings treat each other so badly sometimes?
So badly in our view.
Yeah. Well, in one of the families that joined Weequel School, they had one of their sons kept pestering his brother. His older brother all the time. And I think a big reason was
making these snarky comments and stuff like that.
I think it's like part of it is just boredom. Like it's fun to get a rise out of somebody and just like, see that. But
boredom? Really? That's the cause?
Well,
boredom?
I don't think that's the only cause. But I think that can be part of it. And I think part of it is just that your family's gonna forgive you. Like they're just there all the time. And
they kind of have to.
Yeah, and with other people, you have the pressure of like, hey, if I keep tugging on this person's earlobe, they're not going to want to be my friend anymore. But like, regardless of how many times I tug on this person's earlobe, if they're my sibling, they're not going anywhere, right? It's just something
at least until like in 10 years when they go to college.
You don't necessarily have that, that foresight. So I think that there's just like a lot of different reasons. It could be boredom. It could just be I can get away with it. It could be that I just don't see any reason why not to.
Well, I think that the I can get away with it is a very important part because there are all these causes of it. But of course, like friends have issues sometimes. Friends have arguments, and the reason why they go back and apologize, or at least they'll feel bad about it, or at least they'll try and fix their mistake, is because there's that I can't get away with it. Or at least if I'm being a jerk, they're gonna stop being my friend.
Yeah. I think it's just whatever emotional impulse that you have to do any annoying or aggravating thing to anybody in your family is one in which you don't necessarily have an incentive to suppress that emotional impulse. And I think that the real question is, how do you actually motivate siblings to care? To not just give in to whatever instinct or impulse that they have that might be annoying or damaging to their relationship with their sibling.
We didn't pop out of the womb being like, we're going to be best friends for life. But we just generally, based on a lot of circumstances, we've just really come to care. So what helps, siblings to actually care about their relationship? How do you give them a genuine reason other than just to be nice or something like that?
Well, one of the students, there was a couple of students who joined Weequel School, Yusuf and Mikhail. They are brothers. And we first met them on a call. We were learning more about them, trying to ask questions for, project ideas, helping them brainstorm. But Yusuf could not focus because his younger brother, Mikhail, kept pestering him. He was just like making weird noises and faces. And we're like, what's going on? It was very hard to try to engage him. And so our dad had the idea. He was just asking like, hey, what's all the ways that your little brother annoys you? And they were all excited. They're like, oh, well, he'll
blow in my ear. He'll like poke my nose, stuff like that.
And then we were just writing this all down in a Google Doc, and Mikhail was all excited. He's like, oh, I do this to my brother all the time to annoy him. And so then we were helping them come up with this comedy video idea of all the ways you can annoy your brother. And once they were working on that video together, they had an amazing relationship. Because they had a reason to work together. There was an opportunity cost. Are we going to fight, or are we going to make progress on this video together?
Are we going to make this happen?
Yeah, and I think that projects really help siblings to actually care about the relationship, because there's an apparent reason as to why I should care about this relationship, because it takes time, it takes effort to work on relationships. So if there's no consequence, if there's no opportunity cost, then siblings won't understand why they should care, why they should invest that time and energy.
And also when they're working together, I think that it also shows them all of the things that their siblings can help with, and like obviously they're not thinking it like consciously in their mind, like, oh wow, they're doing all these things, I shouldn't annoy them, but it's just it shows them kind of like subconsciously, I guess, how all of the things that they do and all of the things that they bring that can add value to their life. More example stories. There was there were these triplets that came to Equal School, and I think they started working on an avocado project.
Yeah, well, they were taking an avocado pit and planting an avocado tree.
And the same thing happened. They just were having such a great relationship. They were working together. They were sharing ideas. They were like, "Oh, that's a good idea. Here's my idea."
Yeah.
And then it's like, you just see it change when they actually care, when they have a reason to try. And that's just so cool, you know? And the more that they do, I think the more that they see how much their sibling has.
They see how their sibling can actually add value to them in their lives. And that's something when Aila was born, I don't actually remember this. I do not have any long-term memory, but we've heard the story where before I met you in the hospital.
You were about to go into the room.
Yes, I was about to go in the room.
Got to put in a lot of detail. Yes. We've got a podcast going. People want to be entertained.
Well, I was like 3 years old at the time, and my dad gave me this whole long this
sat you
talk.
Down.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Sumay, you go."
He was telling me, "Hey, this is an opportunity for you to have a best friend for life." And this is not just something that I internalized when I was 3 years old and was like, okay. But this is something that was continuously communicated to me was, you know, you're going to invest a lot of time and energy into a lot of different relationships in your life.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, they fall away. They don't work out. But with your sibling, you know they're going to be there. Do you want to take advantage of that opportunity to make that an incredible relationship, or, you know, just a mediocre relationship for life?
Or completely make them your worst enemy.
Yeah. Like with family, you know that relationship is going to be for life. So do you want it to be best friend for life, or mediocre friend for life, or like
worst enemy for life?
Pain in your butt for life? Pain in your butt for life? What do you want to make out of that, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, sometimes in some cases families don't stick together, but you have a much higher likelihood that
as close as you can get, it's gonna be your family.
Yeah.
And of course, like you said, you were 3.
Yes.
So you weren't internalizing all of this when you were 3. Yeah. I'm guessing, although with you it's kind of hard to tell. But but I think that was the point. That was the lesson that was always being like told, right? That was always that we just remembered all the time, because it was just a lesson that we were hearing.
We had an abstract understanding of why we should why we should care about our sibling relationship, and then a very practical, real understanding through doing projects together. Like when we were younger, maybe I was like 7 or 8 years old, and we kept doing these presentations on how we want a dog, and we were
not just 7 and 8 years old.
Yeah, we did several of them because we really wanted a dog, but we were constantly collaborating on different projects and cool things, and we started.
Mostly you were doing all the work, but I was going along.
You were tagging along.
I was 5. Yeah. Give me some slack. But it was like they were just so cool. Like, we have so many recordings of us just doing stuff together, like us in our big poofy dresses,
doing a dance,
in our pink poofy dresses, doing a dance on the mattress with no music.
Oh my god!
But no matter how big or small, how trivial or real they seem,
we were collaborating together.
Yeah, we were collaborating. We've just done so much together that, I mean, we break this relationship, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway.
Well, I think it's also, part of this was also understanding ourselves and each other. Mm-hmm. And I think that personality types and just understanding natural tendencies, also things like love languages, can help you to build a more a framework for understanding people and for understanding your family, especially. Because we also had a couple students who are brother and sister, and they wrote a project they did personality tests, and they were looking at, okay, how are we different? How are we similar? And they were bonding over the fact that they were both more like easygoing, kind of messy personality types that didn't really care too much about structure and organization, and how they constantly drove their mom crazy because of that. And that was something where they were better understanding themselves and each other and what they had in common. And
it was harder for us, though, because we actually have opposite personalities.
Yeah, we do have opposite personalities, but I don't necessarily know if that makes it harder if you understand that.
Yeah. We actually have become a lot more alike just because we're learning from each other.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think that's something, like, my personality is one in which I'm more reserved. I'm the last person to be doing a podcast like this, but I got to this point because I was learning so much, like, from you, because you are.
I just had the natural talent.
Yes. Your kindergarten teacher called you bubbly. You just had that energy when you were engaging with people, and then I was
bubbly.
Yes, you were, and I wanted some bubbles for myself. So I was
way too ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I was learning from you and your way of engaging with people.
Yeah.
And the same thing with me. I'm somebody who's very structured. Like, I like organization. I like having, control and certainty in my life. Mm-hmm. And, Aila is not that kind of person. But you understood the value of some of the things that I was doing. Yeah. And you were always willing to learn from me because you understood.
Striving to learn.
Yeah. I think maybe you can talk a little bit about this, because I think it's just so incredible how you were always able to have that understanding of, just because my sister is better at this particular thing doesn't mean she's better than me. Yeah. Doesn't mean that I can't have humility and learn, and understanding that even as a younger sibling, there sometimes can be that rivalry of, I need to prove myself, and I don't want to do the same things as my older sibling. Yeah.
Well, so we actually did a lot of things together, and the same thing together. Mm-hmm. Like, we both do Taekwondo, and we both did piano, and all of those things. We both ran weekly school. And I think a lot of families separate their kids in terms of what they do.
Well, a lot of younger siblings don't want to do what their older siblings are doing.
Well, yeah.
Because their older sibling is automatically going to be better. Right.
And right off the bat, I was always told that I was different from you, and that was okay, and that you were better at some things at most things because
because I was older.
Because you had more experience.
Right,
exactly. Yeah. That's what I was always told.
Yeah.
I was always told you had more experience, you're going to be better at this stuff. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's an opportunity for me to learn.
That doesn't say anything about your value as a person.
Okay, you weren't this little sister here.
Well, you don't have to feel challenged by that. And that was something that you actually internalized, which I think that's the really hard part, because you can understand that conceptually and still feel the pain of, like, you know, your older sibling doing something and then you trying to do it, right? And that's something that is also, I think it also allowed you, I think the personality type
You know so much about me. I mean, it wasn't a picnic for me, like always being in your shadow, but not in your shadow because I'm not a mini version of you.
That's why I think the natural tendencies understanding was really helpful, because you could see, you could know, here are my strengths. And here are my sister's strengths. How can we both learn from each other? Yeah. And that was also...
Well, that comes back to the, like, opposite personalities. I think you actually learn... It's not just... You spent so much energy trying to help me when I was younger. Again, going back to the caring thing and the little speech you got when you were 3.
Yeah.
But I think it's really, really hard for younger siblings to learn from their older sibling because they just feel that inadequacy.
Right.
And you're always gonna, like, I can just speak to the younger sibling part of it. I'm always gonna have that, like, in the back of my mind because it's there, right? I've lived with you your whole my whole life. Yeah. And with most things, you were better at me than me, right? Like, even with public speaking, that's a natural strength of mine. When I first did public speaking, when I was like 4, you were better than me at it because you had more experience. But just knowing that that's not true. And I think this goes back to the parent thing. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to give out parenting advice. But always pushing that of, like, okay, you are different from your older sibling and you have your own strengths. And because I know that I'm different and I know I have my own unique qualities, that's, I think, why we were able to work with each other so much.
Yeah.
And
also for me to learn from you as well, even if it took effort from me to help you teach me. Right? Because I could know, here are the things that come naturally to Aila that don't come naturally to me. And how can I learn from that, even if it's just through observation and it's not something in which you would necessarily be able to be like, hey, so here's how I do this thing that I naturally do. Yeah. But it's something that I could say, hey, wow, you did that thing that was really cool, and I learned this thing from it. And showing that this can be a collaborative relationship and not just something where it's like, my older sibling is better than me, so I'm just going to have to learn from them, where that can just, you know, that's not particularly exciting. But I think that the main thing here is because we were collaborating, we cared. Right. And if you care, I think that's what matters above everything else.